Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Grid Talk Talks the Grid. Today I'm joined with Nell, Mila, and Jaco, and today we are talking all things Baku. Baku is probably one of the better street circuits on the calendar, I think personally, and it holds a place in my heart as it was meant to be my first race. Last year? Yeah, last year it was meant to be my first race. Or was it 2019 was I meant to go? No, 2020 I was meant to go. And because of COVID, it got cancelled. Then I was meant to be in Monaco, blah, blah, blah. Long story. So Baku for me is always an exciting race, and it's an exciting weekend. I think it's probably one of the prettier circuits as well. Even that long straight, I think is quite nice because you get to see the other part of the track as well. I think that's quite unique. So what I think we'll do is we'll recap the last few races. So obviously we didn't have one last year because of no COVID. So 2019 Bottas won, then 2018 it was Lewis Hamilton, and then the year before was my guy, which I still think is probably one of the more exciting Baku races. I'm not even going to talk about 2018. I'm not gonna say anything. But what I want to know is what's been your favorite Baku race so far, if we can remember that far.
Oh. I mean, in 2019, Sebastian Vettel was on the podium, so that's a nice thing for me personally. But I think Baku is one of the tracks where there's lots of things going on behind the scenes that I think is hilarious, but not necessarily like the race itself. My favorite quote ever will always be "I am stupid," because I feel that every day. I relate on a personal level. But like, I don't know, like, I think it's one of those races that I tend to forget about, actually. I couldn't really say, oh, I remember especially that 2017 Baku race, because for me, it's not one of my favorite tracks. I gotta be honest.
Okay.
I kind of despise that track a bit, but it's okay.
Ooh,
there are
controversial.
there are parts of it that are cool, but like for me, it's not one of my favorites, to be honest. So
I'd say the same. I don't really remember. I'd say probably 2017 in terms of the result, was a pretty good one, because Ricciardo winning, and then Bottas took Stroll for second, essentially on the line. So it ended up being probably for Baku one of the more exciting races.
Yeah, I actually feel the same. Like, they're not really memorable for me as well. Yeah, I always like the streets. It's like it's all different. Yeah, a vibe around there, and the buildings are very different than usually on a street circuit like Monaco. So that's probably more in my head, like the city. It's very nice. I think it's a pretty nice city, but I can't remember anything of the Grand Prix.
I'm actually really hurt. I really like Baku. I mean, okay, like, is there realistically much racing going on? I mean, no, I just think it's a pretty circuit to look at. And I think
it's better
from what
Monaco, particularly this year's Monaco I don't think anyone overtook after like the line. But Baku at least has some overtaking and has a little bit more. Mila does not agree.
I'm not sure. No, I'm thinking in my head. I'm like, wait.
Yeah.
Would I choose Monaco over Baku or not? That's the question that I'm actually thinking about, because I said it in our Monaco episode that I really, really enjoy the vibe of Monaco during race weekends. And I'm not sure that like Baku can compete with that. But
I think Monaco is iconic.
It's like it's a beautiful city. Like the castle section, apart from the whole difficulty of it, it's beautiful. But like,
I love that section. I love it. I think it's the best part of the track. But
I've seen people crashing there in real life and in sim racing, and it's just like it's
Charles,
one of the hardest tracks ever. Like, no matter if you drive it in real life or in sim racing, everyone just suffers all the time.
But isn't that good though? Because then, you know, you kind of have to be the best of the best, or that, you know, that's the whole point of racing. And sort of like with Monaco, you have to have your utmost concentration for 100% for 78 laps. And I think Baku has sectors where it's difficult, whereas I think Monaco is probably has a higher intensity. I can't remember what the stat is for Baku on how much you're on the throttle, but I think for Monaco, I think Monaco is one of the tracks where you are on the throttle for a majority of the race. So it'd be cool to kind of see that comparison. But one of the other things I wanted to talk about with Baku was how well the second Red Bull driver is going to do, because Pierre had or was having a very good race. And this is one of the things I do remember from Baku, is that he was doing very well and his engine just said, no, mate, sorry, like, just, I'm done now. You were doing too well. I have to break. So what I want to talk about is how, because Red Bull have been okay at this circuit, I think, but I feel like Ferrari, if we look at 2019, Ferrari kind of had the upper hand on Red Bull. And if we look at 2017, okay, was Red Bull's engine and chassis, I can't even speak, chassis suited to something like Baku? I mean, Daniel had a fantastic drive, but realistically, I think it was more the driver than the car for 2017. So how do we think, coming off of a win from Monaco, how are Red Bull and more specifically Perez going to do this year to secure that lead? Because Baku is a very Mercedes track, and I think that Lewis might just bounce back at this and just silence everyone, and then it's like game over. So
I think it partly depends on how true this whole flexible wing situation, like how big of an effect that is having, because, you know, Mercedes are coming off a tough weekend, so who knows what, you know, in a kind of similar circuit, are they going to be equally as underwhelming? And with, you know, Red Bull having what everyone is saying is an advantage, you know, maybe this will be the one they'll try and take, you know, a bigger lead, knowing that Mercedes will be coming back on the, you know, proper circuits.
Is it an advantage though? Is it? Because if the FIA thinks it's legal, then it's fine. Like, I remember being in the paddock in 2020 at testing when DAS was going on, and now Johnny Herbert was like, what do you guys think? And I was just like, listen, Johnny, mate, like, I don't know if it's legal, like, is it? And he's going, yeah, well, and he's like explaining it to us. So if something like DAS is legal and Red Bull have somehow aerodynamically engineered this wing, which is a component on the car, if that's legal, then that's fine. And then you look at something like DAS, where it's the driver doing the steering, how, you know, I know they're two completely different things, but they're very two big protests that could really hinder or advantage a team. And I'm surprised that no other team has then come forward and protested it.
I mean,
is it just Mercedes being salty?
No, I think at the end of the day, it's going to be a Mercedes Red Bull thing, where the one team protests the rear wing of the other team, and the other team protests the front wing of the other team. So it's like they both are just trying to get their advantages in, and it's totally understandable because this is a championship and they all want to win. Personally, I think Red Bull has just been very smart, and if it works out for them, good for you. But I would say it worked for Max, but Jaco, not so sure. So what I'm interested to see in Baku is really how good Jaco will be, because it's true, Pierre had a great race. He was in P6, if I'm not wrong, when his, was it P6 or was it even up higher? I can't remember, but like his engine just decided to, you know, quit, but he was doing quite well. So I personally want to see Jaco in the top 5, but I'm not 100% sure if it's going to work, because what we cannot forget is that Ferrari on that street circuit in Monaco was absolutely insane. The way that car was feeling in corners and how they just had all of the control. Like, look at a track like Monaco that's really going like this most of the time, and that car did nothing, no movement, nothing. Like, it was not bouncing nowhere. If they can use that same vibe for Baku, don't count out that Ferrari, I'm saying. But that's just what I think.
I think the Ferrari looks so good around Monaco. I'm more inclined to say it was probably the best car on track.
Yeah.
Looking at it, and then, you know, the drivability of it just looks insane.
I think Charles was very unlucky again, wasn't he? I think had he been, if they essentially stayed in the order they started in, he probably would have had it.
Yeah, probably.
Breaks my absolute heart. But I think it's the home curse, and I'd be interested to see if Charles bins it again at the castle section. And also, since we're on the topic of Charles, there has been some talks within the paddock and the FIA to introduce a rule that looks at, if you bin it, well, it's not the term bin it, but we're colloquial here at Grid Talk. If the pole sitter bins it should their fastest lap be deleted, or their pole lap be deleted. I am on the fence with this, because ultimately they have set their fastest lap, and if that's the fastest lap that no one can beat, then they have got pole. But then if they haven't then still fully completed Q3, what does that then entail? Because what if someone in Q2 like finished, or like set their fastest lap and got like P12, for example, and then binned it? They would probably most likely keep their P12. So is it because it's pole, everyone's like, oh yeah, blah, 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 or is it because it was Monaco and that's how it works at Monaco, that you're most likely to start or to finish where you start? Is that why that conversation then came about?
I think, you know, ultimately they are all 20 of them are running the risk that they, you know, something will happen. It could happen at any moment.
Yeah.
Because, you know, they are all expected to, you know, whoever sets the fastest lap first, you know, if people can then, you know, carry on and beat it, fine. But, you know, for people to say, oh, because loads of them did, Max did, Bottas did, said, oh, this was the lap. Well, it could have been, but, you know, the last lap was Charles's lap. So it's just whoever, it's unfortunate that it happened, but whoever qualifies fastest, really.
Yeah, and the moment was also very unlucky for Max, who was basically like having a better time around then when the race stopped, when the red flag came. So otherwise, maybe Max would have gotten that pole.
I just feel like it's another one of these weird rules where I'm like, if it's Lewis Hamilton getting pole and then he's going to get it taken away, everyone will be like, yeah, someone else is on pole. But once it's Charles Leclerc at his home race, everyone's crying like a baby because it's sad. But like, I personally think that rule doesn't solve the problem, because the problem is there is a huge sausage curb. You fly over it and you cannot move your wheels. Where are you supposed to go? It can happen to everyone. It happened to Max. And he said it's a mistake. It happens. So what do you expect the drivers to do? Then you need to invent flying cars who can, you know, move on top of the ground, because that's apparently what we need. I feel like it doesn't help with the actual problem, which is, wow, there's a huge sausage curb, and if you hit it in the wrong direction, you're just doomed. So I don't know. I kind of feel like that rule would be kind of stupid if you ask me. But I don't know. It's just
It's part of racing also, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a difficult time, and whether we'll see this introduced this year, I don't think so. It probably might be introduced for next year when the new regs come in. So that'll be interesting to see. I don't see them imposing a rule like at this, I don't want to say late on in the season, but like if you're going to have something like that, it should have been like consistent from the start. So I don't think that'll be brought in. Another thing I quickly wanted to exactly,
like they already let Charles keep his. They now can't take it away from someone else.
Yeah,
because it could happen to anybody anywhere, and it's not, it's unfair now to change.
But I mean, the FIA are so inconsistent. Who knows?
I mean, something interesting we have learned this weekend, or like last weekend when we were in Monaco, about pole positions is if obviously when you're on the pole position, you have to change the way you're using your throttle map. So in Formula 2, we had a pole position that then got taken away due to issues with the car. So Liam Lawson gets promoted to pole, uses the wrong throttle map, and then gets disqualified. And I'm just over here like, okay, that's something I actually didn't know. But how can you, like, this happened 3 seconds before the start. At least that's what it felt like to me. How is he supposed to know? It's his first time driving on that track in that racing series. How is he supposed to know? So pole positions in Monaco seem to be a whole different kind of crazy, because I'm actually fuming about this. It's unfair.
It's one of them things, isn't it, that we just have to sit there and just moan about it, because little people like us don't really work in the FIA yet. Maybe, who knows what the future may hold. Another thing I quickly wanted to talk about before we talk about our predictions for this weekend is little old Lando Norris on the podium, which I think came as a surprise since Charles was then didn't start. And then also I wanted to talk about, there's been a bits of drama on the timeline between Lando and Daniel Vans, saying Lando lapped Daniel and there's beef and there's this, and Daniel's having an awful time. And I wanted to get your guys' opinion on Lando so far this season, and where you think Daniel sits coming into this weekend in particular.
Well, I firstly would like to say that I think Lando has shown his real talent, and a lot of people have been saying like he's never too serious for this, and he's always funny, but I think he really proved people wrong. And yeah, he already had 2 podiums right now, so I think that's a pretty good achievement in a pretty new McLaren for him as well, with the Mercedes engine. I think when we're talking about Daniel, I think he still really needs to get used to the car, like everyone should.
Yeah, I agree. I think Lando, just like at the beginning of the season, there was a big talk of, if Lando doesn't beat Daniel early on, then he's, he might not ever reach, his full potential. And he's just proved a point that he is that good. And why Daniel is not performing in that car, I don't know, but it's not Lando's job to bring Daniel up to speed all the time. Like, if Daniel doesn't get used to the car, he doesn't get used to the car. You shouldn't blame Lando Norris for that. It's not his fault.
I mean, I personally think this whole Twitter drama is insane and absolutely useless, and personally I just feel like it's none of y'all's business. But
I completely missed it, by the way, the whole drama. So
I didn't see it either.
I'm just ignoring all of it. I'm seeing things and I'm just like, I don't give a
Oh yeah.
Just must be my timeline then between.
No,
It's a very Daniel focus.
Crazy. Your timeline always seems like on fire, and I'm sitting here like, do I live under a rock?
It's actually not though. I think I don't know. I mean, my following seems to be all right, but I think it's people who I follow who then are involved in the drama, and then it's brought on my timeline, and I'm like, well, I mean, whatever.
I mean, I feel like what we've already mentioned, Lando was underestimated for, I think, the past 1.5 years at least. And I just feel like he has come out of his, like, he's a butterfly now, he made his transition, and now he's finally showing the racecraft that he has within himself. And he has always been a strong racing driver in other series, but I think there was always someone who was that bit better. So people were like, oh, he's always going to be number 2. Well, for the first time, he seems to be number 1. And it's insanely good. And I'm very, very happy to see that, because from what we've known about him, he had his insecurities. And it's great to see him overcome those. As for Danny, I think we cannot underestimate the fact that he's driving in a Mercedes-powered car for the first time. He's been very used to like Honda and Renault engines. So this is his first time driving a Mercedes engine, and it's a different thing. We might not know because we're not sitting in that car, but it's a different thing. And
it's interesting. Did you hear? I kind of think I've been on Sky UK over the weekend. They were saying that Carlos had come up to Daniel and said, "Oh, it's a really weird car to drive, isn't it?"
Yeah.
So clearly, there is an actual. It's kind of like the second Red Bull, but no one really talks about it. Like there clearly is something about that car that is hard to get used to.
And I mean, I saw a great interview with Carlos as well on Sky Germany, where he was talking about stepping into a new car for a new season and how it's just a completely different world. It's a completely different world. I mean, Carlos as well as Daniel has been getting used to one car, and now they suddenly sit in a different one. Carlos is doing an outstanding job, but that is not always the case, and that is not how it's supposed to be. You need time to get used to something, and I'm crossing my fingers for Danny Rick that he gets it done in the next few races, because I believe that he is an awesome driver, and we have seen him doing top tier racing. So I'm 100% sure we will see that again. But I think right now he puts a lot of pressure on himself, and I imagine there's a lot of pressure from the team on him as well, because they got him because he's Danny Rick. So I
think it's similar. It's similar to Vettel in the sense that, he's a past race winner. He's been one of the people, with Daniel Ricciardo talked about as being a future champion. With Vettel, he is a champion, and neither of them have come in and, properly hit the ground running in the way Carlos Sainz did. And they're both being talked down as though, oh, it's just, they've just had their time. But we saw with Vettel this weekend, he can do it. He just needed time to get used to the car. And that car, that Aston Martin this year was also a better pain to get used to.
Yeah, it looks like a toy.
So it just takes time.
It's driving like
Are we ready for the Daniel propaganda to begin? I truly think that this is, I do not want to discredit Lando, because he's done a stellar job this season. He's done amazing. 2 podiums is insane already, and to get one at Monaco, hats off to my guy. However, I think that as soon as Daniel is up to speed, it is game over. He is going to be dusted. He is going to poo his pants every time he sees him in the team meetings. I think as soon as something clicks with Daniel, it's done. It's over. As soon as Daniel made that Renault work, it was race after race after race, where poor little Ocon was just straggling along and was like, oh yeah, Q3, yeah, okay, fine. never gonna happen. But I think McLaren are going to change Daniel's chassis, because that's what they did for Carlos, and then that clicked for Carlos. So I'm thinking and praying and hoping that works for Daniel as well.
I'm pretty sure they're doing it.
Yeah.
I think that's going to happen. I think we've also got to remember that it's 4 or 5 races in now, and to go from a Red Bull Honda engine to then learning a new engine at Renault, staying it there for 2 years and then getting used to it in the second year fully to its full potential. Okay, amazing. I think we've also got to remember that next year there are new regs, so it's completely different for everyone. So everyone's going to be on a level playing field. That's going to be exciting. But in terms of this season, I would be very, very worried if by maybe like race 9-10, Daniel hasn't clicked. Then I'd be more inclined to worry and think there is definitely something. I will back him up 100% all the time, unless something is very, very wrong. I don't think it's him. I generally think it's the style of the car. And I think from where he's changed in the past couple of years, I think it's very, very different. And I think it's not Lando's job to bring him up to speed. Of course not. It's a team sport as much, but you've got your own individual cars. You've got your own side of the garage. You've got your own engineers, your own mechanics. I don't expect Lando to help him at all. But I'm just hoping that something clicks. And I think he is being very hard on himself because he knows what he can do. And he knows, I think he was saying over the weekend, he was like, yeah, that was a good lap. And then they'd be like, oh, that's a second off. And he'd be like, so he knows something's not right. And then that slightly worries me. And it thinks, oh, like, you know, is it the car? Like, is it what's going on? But I think that as soon as he gets it, it's game over. Like,
I'm not sure
done.
it's going to be that big a thing. Like, you have to remember that, yeah, Daniel's in a new car, but Lando is also learning the same Mercedes engine at the same time. Like, this isn't like, yes, there are other bits of the car that obviously Lando does know that Daniel doesn't, but in terms of the engine, they're both starting again. I think Daniel will be a lot closer, and I think the fight will be on between them. But I don't
think it's necessarily the end. I don't think it's the whole engine. I don't want to be like, oh, like it's just the Mercedes engine. It's the whole car is completely different to a Renault. The aerodynamics are going to be different. Not just the engine, it's like the driving shaft, the braking distance. Like, I was listening to the helmet cams, and there's things that Lando's doing differently that Daniel now has to learn another driver's driving style. You know, he had to be similar to Max's, and you know, that suited him very well. And obviously
it's a lot of,
poor little Ocon.
It's a lot of looking at the telemetry and stuff as well. You know, he will probably take a very close look at where does Lando brake? How does he do this? How does he do that? And telemetry, I've seen some of it. I'm lost. I'm completely lost. It's a bunch of lines and numbers, and you just have to get the hang of it. And I think he is giving his absolute best, because no one wants to see him struggle that hard, and especially not himself.
It's painful. It's actually painful.
What I think, though, in Baku, maybe Danny could have an advantage as to the fact that he's been on that track a bit more often than Lando, because Lando drove there in 2019. So in the Formula One car.
Was that his first? I was going to say, yeah, F2 have been there.
I'm not sure if they've been there, but they're going to be there for sure. So I can imagine that they have been there before.
I think it's going to be interesting.
Just throw them onto a street track and be like, "You go, do that." But I think from a Formula One perspective, Danny could have a bit of an advantage because that's also a track that he's been good at in the past. So he kind of knows the points of importance and stuff. But you cannot forget that Lando had an incredible start in 2019. His race start in Baku was really, really good. So I don't think in this season that there will ever be a point where we can count one or the other out. I think it's going to be a fight. And once it's on, it's on. But
which is exciting.
But please, Twitter, stop the drama. Twitter, stop the drama. It's unnecessary. No one needs it. They have enough pressure on themselves. Stop it.
They're doing it because they're bored, and I just think certain fans just need to
take a chill pill.
Guest has arrived. Anyway, on that nice little segue that we're talking about Baku and things, to round this episode off, what are your predictions for this weekend? What do we think? I'm going to go ahead and say there's probably going to be the classic Mercedes and Red Bull podium. I don't think Checo will be too far behind. And I think we shouldn't discredit Ferrari out. I wouldn't be surprised if one of them ended up on the podium. Do I think anyone else outside, let's say, the top 3-4 teams are going to end up on the podium? I doubt it. And I'm going to say that one of the Haas cars bins it at the castle section.
Oh, my heart. I'm just praying.
I mean, it doesn't look good for either of them, as much as it pains me to say it for poor little Mick, but
Yeah.
Had a tough couple of weeks, hasn't he?
Don't jinx it, please. I can't have that happen.
so what do we think? Any crazy predictions? I reckon there's going to be a red flag in the race.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it could be anyone's, in the sense, not that I think, it's not going to be a Haas and a Williams, but in terms of
George Russell for pole. Let's go.
Yeah, it's a bit like Monaco. Monaco is actually surprisingly safe this year, but people can bin it so easily that any one of them could be out. How you saw what happened with the two Red Bulls whacking into each other.
Also, for
No real reason. It could, stuff happens in Baku.
I don't know. It's hard to say. I think my boldest prediction would be Ferrari dominating some of the race again, because I just feel like they have gotten a hang of their car when it comes to street circuits. But yeah, I'm pretty sure there is going to be one, if not two or more safety cars. And I don't think the castle section is going to be the only problem. I think there are a few problematic points on that track. I mean, we've seen people go off track and parking their cars in corners just because they felt like it. So
Daniel.
I mean, the best part was him backing out and just going straight into Daniel quick. Because
I watched that video earlier.
That was a boss move. No, but
pain.
I think the chances of safety cars are very high, and I predict another Mazda spin to happen because it's been long enough without one, and I can see
it's time.
Yeah, I think I think it will be Mercedes, and I don't know in what order, because it can go, it can be any order, but I think it will be Hamilton, Verstappen, Bottas, the top three in the end. Very, very boring, but yeah, I don't know. I hope for a big surprise though.
I'm hoping for like two of them. I'd say probably Hamilton and Verstappen are almost,
Yeah.
like, if it depends. Mercedes were pretty rubbish last time,
Yeah.
so who knows, but
Who knows?
I'm hoping for either Charles or Carlos to have the other spot. I think the Ferraris are on a roll.
If Charles doesn't bin it at the castle section in quali,
I think that's
on
never
the podium.
going to happen again, because I think if you made that mistake once, it follows you into your nightmares and you're never going to do it again. Like,
Will that hinder him though?
I can't imagine that.
Will that stop him from pushing all the way because he wants to be safe for all of it?
No. I don't think that either. I think once you get scared, you should quit, because that's something you cannot afford. You cannot afford to be scared in Formula One. But I think it's just a feeling that, here's this section that I made a mistake in. It's not going to happen again.
Yeah.
That's it. I think it's just in here. That's all.
Make sure you are checking our social channels to see our predictions, because quali could change. It could be amazing. It could rain. It could do bloody well anything. But that is it for this week's episode. We hope you enjoyed. If you did, leave us a thumbs up and comment down below your predictions for this weekend and what you thought about last weekend or 2 weekends ago, race at Monaco. Let us know what you think. And yeah, we hope you have a wonderful day whenever and wherever you're watching. And yeah, make sure you're following us on all our social media. The link is in the description, and we will see you in the next one. Bye everyone.